This is an Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine, the largest the U.S. Navy has ever built. And right now, it's vanishing right in front of you. The dive klaxon echoes through the hull. Ballast tanks flood. The deck tilts forward 2 degrees, 5, 10, and over 18,000 tons of black steel slides under the Pacific without a sound. In 90 seconds, it will be gone. Not for hours, for 3 months. 155 people are sealed inside with enough firepower to end civilization. And the instant the boat goes under, only a handful of people on Earth will know where it is. It's the most powerful weapon ever built, and its entire job is never to be found. And this is what it really looks like inside. The dive itself is almost boring to watch. The officer of the deck calls depth in 50-foot increments, 100, 200. The deck holds its angle underfoot. Coffee cups slide a quarter inch across the wardroom table. Then, somewhere past 200 feet, the hull groans, deep, structural, the sound of something enormous taking the strain. New sailors flinch the first time they hear it. The veterans don't even look up. That groan isn't a problem. That's the ocean squeezing 560 feet of HY-80 steel. The hull is longer than the Washington Monument laid on its side. It displaces 18,750 tons submerged. One reactor turns one massive shaft, and the steel just holds. Go deep enough and the pressure climbs into the hundreds of pounds per square inch. The ocean trying to crush a steel cylinder the length of a city block. The boat was built for exactly this. The hull has one job that matters more than any other: keep the ocean on the outside. Stand it on its nose and it would top a 56-story building. Now make all of that silent. Out in the water, an enemy sonar pulse hits the hull. Instead of bouncing back with a return that screams, "Submarine right here," it just gets swallowed. Credit the anechoic coating, rubbery tiles glued over the entire hull. They soak up sonar energy instead of reflecting it. Picture wrapping a battleship in the acoustic foam you'd see in a recording studio. A real ping bounces home loud and clear, like a yell across an empty gymnasium. Hit these tiles and that same shout vanishes into a closet full of winter coats, muffled, scattered, not worth chasing. Here's the part that surprises people. This boat is certified to dive past 800 feet, and the hull can take far more. But on patrol, it doesn't go deep at all. It cruises shallow, 150 to 250 feet down. Depth is a tightrope. Too deep and the boat loses the layers that hide it. Too shallow and it pokes up where any radar can spot it. So it threads the middle, up in the thermal layers where the water bends sound and sonar loses the thread. The most destructive weapon in human history doesn't lurk in some black abyss. It hides just below the waves. Once it reaches patrol depth, the captain's voice comes over the 1MC, the ship-wide intercom. Rig ship for ultra-quiet. Non-essential machinery shuts down, and voices drop to near whispers. The boat becomes a hole in the ocean. For the next 90 days, it surfaces only in short bursts, minutes at a time, maybe once a week, to grab encrypted traffic, then slips back under. The rest of the time, as far as the world knows, it doesn't exist. And what it's carrying is exactly why it works this hard to disappear. Walk aft from the control room, past the crew's mess and the wardroom, and the passage opens into a compartment 2 stories tall. 2 rows of steel tubes run floor to ceiling, 10 on each side. They stand in the half-dark like trees in an orchard. The crew calls this Sherwood Forest. Stand in the middle of it and you get why. Each tube is 44 feet tall and 87 inches across. Inside each one sits a Trident II D5 ballistic missile. 44 feet of solid rocket fuel and nuclear warheads standing straight up inside the pressure hull. A single steel wall separates them from the bunks where the sailors sleep. Some submariners tape family photos to the missile tube hatches. The most destructive technology ever created, decorated with pictures of someone's kids. Do the math slowly, because it doesn't feel real fast. Each Trident II can carry up to 8 MIRVs, multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles. Fancy way of saying warheads that split apart in space and steer toward 8 separate targets. Each warhead runs between 100 and 475 kilotons. The bomb that flattened Hiroshima was 15 kilotons. One of the bigger warheads here packs more than 30 times that. One warhead. One missile holds 8 of them. One submarine holds 20 missiles. A single Ohio-class submarine can put more destructive force on more separate targets than any bomb dropped in all of World War II, both atomic weapons included. And there are 14 of these boats in the fleet. So why 20 missiles when each boat has 24 tubes? Because of a treaty. The 2010 New START agreement capped how many nuclear warheads the U.S. could deploy. And to comply, the Navy deactivated 4 tubes shut on every boat. 20 tubes live, 4 sealed. The capability was always there. The arms control math just took 4 off the table. This is the whole idea behind America's second strike punch. Picture an enemy launching a surprise attack that wipes out every missile silo, every bomber base, every installation on American soil. These boats would still be out there, hidden and undetected and fully loaded, ready to answer with civilization-ending force. That's mutually assured destruction. And as grim as it sounds, it's why these submarines exist. Not to fight a nuclear war, to make sure nobody is ever insane enough to start one. Silos sit in the ground where an enemy can map them from orbit, and bombers sit on runways. But you can't target what you can't find. Now here's a twist. 4 of the original 18 Ohio-class boats had their nuclear missiles ripped out entirely. In their place, 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles went in, plus lockout chambers for Navy SEALs to swim out of while submerged. Same hull, opposite job. The Navy took an apocalypse machine and turned it into a Swiss Army knife. One boat can flatten a coastline with cruise missiles, or surface a SEAL team off a hostile shore in the dark and pull them back in before sunrise. Nobody on the beach ever knows it was 100 feet down the whole time. But every missile, every warhead, every day of every patrol depends on one thing: keeping the crew alive. And that job runs on one machine. Right now, the crew is breathing normally, 200 feet down, without a single oxygen tank on board feeding them. The air comes from the ocean itself. Electrolysis units split water atoms into hydrogen and oxygen, then pump the oxygen through the boat. The balance is everything. Too little flow and the air goes thin. Too much and you burn power it can't spare. Either way, the reactor keeps it coming. Hour after hour, the whole patrol. And that's just breathing the air. It also desalinates seawater into fresh water for drinking, cooking, and cooling itself. It runs the scrubbers that pull carbon dioxide back out before it gets thick enough to be a problem. Propulsion, water, power, the air in your lungs, all of it comes from a single core. The submarine builds its own atmosphere from scratch. A sealed terrarium running on a nuclear furnace. As long as the reactor runs, the crew breathes. The day it stops, the clock starts. That recycled air comes with a side effect. It carries a faint chemical tang from the scrubbers, and submariners call it that boat smell. It soaks into your clothes, your skin, everything. The story goes that spouses can pick it out of a laundry basket from the next room. You'll hear people say these reactors never need refueling. That's almost true, but never is a myth. The S8G reactor runs for years on one fuel load, way past what any power plant on land could do. But around the middle of its life, they haul the whole boat into dry dock for what's called an engineering refueling overhaul. They cut the hull open, lift the spent core out, and drop a fresh one in. The last one ever done on an Ohio-class boat, the USS Louisiana, took 40 months. Hold on to that because it matters later. That overhaul is the single biggest scheduled repair in the life of the boat. Months in dry dock with the reactor torn open. And the whole point of the submarine built to replace it is to never do that again. Now the single most dangerous threat on a submarine. Picture this. 2012, a civilian shipyard worker is doing maintenance on the attack submarine USS Miami, and he sets a fire inside the hull on purpose. It tears through the boat. Damage tops $450 million, and the submarine is gutted so badly, the Navy gives up and scraps it. The most dangerous thing on a submarine has never been the reactor. It's fire. A sealed steel tube, a limited supply of oxygen, and nowhere on Earth to run. One person with a lighter did what no enemy navy ever has. The reactor can't fix the hardest problem on board. No sunlight, no privacy, no way to call home. 90 days, no way out. That problem doesn't have an engineering answer. Imagine your bedroom is a coffin-sized rack stacked 3 high. Now imagine you share it. The enlisted bunks stacked 3 deep, each about the size of a backyard coffin, with maybe 1.5 feet of headroom. Space on a submarine is a constant war with the missiles, and the missiles always win. Give the crew more space and there's nowhere to put the weapons. Too little and the crew can't function for 90 days. So the racks get squeezed to the bone. Your rack is the only private space on the whole boat. And on a lot of patrols, you don't even get that to yourself. It's called hot racking. 3 sailors on 3 different watch schedules rotate through one bunk. You climb in and the sheets are still warm from the last guy. Food is where the Navy fights back. It spends more per meal on submarine crews than on anyone else in the fleet. The galley runs around the clock, 4 meals a day. The cooks are quietly the most important people on the boat, not by rank, but by pure consensus. Can't see the sun, can't phone home. Dinner becomes a line between a crew that holds together and a crew that falls apart. Here's something that messes with your head. Down here, for decades, a day wasn't 24 hours. The crew ran an 18-hour schedule, 6 hours on watch, 12 off, over and over. On paper, it sounds efficient. The problem is that the human body flatly refuses to sink to an 18-hour day. No sunrise means nothing resets the body clock, so it drifts. Sailors shove their internal clock 6 time zones east with every single watch. Permanent jet lag, 90 days straight, self-inflicted. The Navy studied the wreckage, the mood crashes, the fatigue, the fact that these are the people with their hands closest to the launch keys. In 2015, the Navy finally shifted the whole force to a real 24-hour schedule, putting everyone's rhythm back where nature wants it. And the crew can't call home, not once in 90 days. The only link to the world above is the familygram, a one-way message of 40 words or fewer. Command screens every one before it reaches a sailor, and then only about once a week. A sailor reads it standing in a passageway the width of a closet, and there's no way to write back. He folds it up, pockets it, and goes back to watch, not knowing the message is already weeks out of date, written for a world that's moved on without him. Whether his kid passed the test, whether his spouse is okay, whether his parents are even still alive, none of that gets answered until the boat surfaces. So how does a boat survive losing half its people to exhaustion on a schedule like that? It doesn't run on one crew. Every Ohio-class boat has 2, blue and gold, and they swap on and off so the submarine itself can stay at sea almost year-round. That's 310 sailors on one hull. One crew comes home from 90 days under while the other waits on the pier, bags packed, ready to take the boat back out. The submarine rests about a month for maintenance, then it disappears again. The Navy screens hard for the people who can take this: claustrophobia, anxiety, whether you can stand living shoulder to shoulder with the same 154 faces for 3 months. They try to catch all of it before a sailor ever steps aboard. There's a corpsman on board trained for everything from a busted appendix to a sailor coming apart at the seams. But the screening isn't perfect, and the place still breaks some people. And the boat has almost no options when it does. A submarine on deterrent patrol can't just surface and call for a helicopter to haul someone off. Surface, and the boat gives away the one thing the whole mission depends on hiding. The point is to not exist. Existing, even for an hour, defeats it. Every one of those 155 people trained for the same thing, and almost none of them will ever set foot in the room where it happens. Most patrols, the radio's just routine chatter for 90 days straight. Then, on one watch, a specific sequence comes through. 3 letters the crew has been listening for the entire time they've been under. It means one thing: come shallow and authenticate a launch message. That signal did something no normal radio can. It reached a submarine hiding under hundreds of feet of seawater. The classic system behind it is extremely low-frequency radio, ELF, the only signal that could punch down through a deep ocean without the boat coming shallow. The catch is that it's brutally slow. A 3-letter code could take up to 15 minutes to send, one painful character at a time, and it only runs one direction. The boat receives but never answers. Think of a telegram tapping out one letter every few minutes from a sender nobody can reply to. The captain moves to a locked door in the forward compartment, a room that most of the crew will go their whole careers without entering. He doesn't go alone. The executive officer peels off toward a separate safe in a separate part of the boat. The two of them return carrying sealed packets and converge on a space with 2 consoles, 2 chairs, and a stretch of bare deck between them. They take their seats. Neither can reach the other's console. Neither can reach both keys, and that's no accident. That gap is the whole design. The packets hold authentication codes, and they aren't digital. They're physical. Printed text sealed inside tamper-evident packaging built to defeat any kind of fake, right down to a spoofed voice on the radio. The 2 officers compare the codes in the launch message against the ones from their safes. They either match or they don't. No phone call to confirm. No second opinion. No asking, "Are you sure?" This is the 2-person rule. It isn't a guideline tacked to a wall. It's built into the steel of the room. No single human being can do this alone. By design, the codes match. The captain calls battle station's missile. The whole sub snaps into launch posture, and 2 operators move to insert the launch keys. Here's what almost nobody expects. These operators are enlisted sailors, E4s and E5s, a lot of them 22 years old. A kid who'd get charged an extra fee just to rent a car is the one who physically turns the key that launches a nuclear missile. He's turned that key in drills more time than he can count, never once believing the day would actually come. And under military law, that same kid is actually required to refuse the order if he thinks it's illegal. The keys turn together. The tube hatch swings open. A blast of pressurized gas punches the 4-story missile straight up and out of the water. Get that blast wrong and the whole shot fails. Too weak and the missile never clears the surface. Too violent and the gas tears it up on the way out. Done right, the rocket motor doesn't even light until it's clear of the water. Think of a cork fired out of a champagne bottle, except the cork weighs 130,000 pounds and the bottle is a submarine. The boat never lights a rocket motor inside its own hull. The instant it breaks the surface, the engine ignites and it's gone. Now here's the detail I held back. The missile is climbing, and it's going to find a target on the far side of the planet with no GPS at all. And the way that it knows where it is sounds like science fiction. It looks at the stars. Literally, in the middle of its flight, the missile reads the positions of actual stars through the upper atmosphere and checks them against a star catalog in its own computer. From that, it works out exactly where it is. Engineers call it stellar inertial guidance. No satellite, no GPS, no external signal an enemy could jam or spoof. A nuclear missile navigating by starlight. The same trick ancient sailors used to cross the oceans, shrunk down and engineered to land within a few hundred feet after flying more than 4,000 nautical miles. The oldest form of navigation on Earth, built into the most destructive weapon ever made. From authenticated codes to the missile leaving the tube, only minutes. The crew has drilled this hundreds of times until it's pure muscle memory. But they also understand what a real order would mean. If they're ever actually firing, the United States has already been hit. Millions are already gone, and they're about to answer in kind. The 2-person rule isn't only there for security. It's there so no single human being ever carries that weight alone. In more than 40 years of Ohio-class patrols, that order has never come. The crews drill for it anyway, year after year, and every one of them quietly prays it stays that way. The submarines built to inherit the watch are already on the water. The oldest Ohio-class boats are over 40 years old now. Their hulls have ridden out thousands of dive cycles, each one flexing that steel a little more. And there can be no gap. An enemy who spots even a temporary hole in America's second strike is an enemy who starts running the kind of math nobody wants run. So the next generation is already being built. The replacement is the Columbia class. 12 new submarines, 16 missile tubes each, running on an electric drive that makes them quieter than anything in the water. And here's the payoff to that refueling problem from earlier. The Columbia gets a life-of-ship reactor core. No cutting the hull open halfway through. No 40-month overhaul, ever. The yard builds the boat, fuels it one time, and it runs the entire 42-year life on that single core without ever being cracked open again. Of course, none of this comes anywhere close to cheap. Each boat runs north of $9 billion. Building all 12 comes to roughly $130 billion, and over their lifetimes, the program tops $340 billion. The first hull, the USS Columbia, is under construction right now. First patrols are planned for around 2031, perfectly timed to slide into the rotation exactly as the oldest Ohio boats retire. If you enjoyed this video, then watch this one to see the world's biggest military aircraft haul a tank across the planet. Bye for now.